Hello YouTube, welcome to technically episode 1, I suppose, of the little improvement series I decided to start. Just showcasing how I get better at the beginning of each format when I'm learning a deck and learning a meta. Still don't know how much I can say I'm learning the meta, so I'm still low berries. I was at like 250 million, I think, when I played these games, around there. So still kind of low, but still the only reason I'm showcasing them is because I think there was something to learn from each one of these 4 games I'm gonna show. And 4 games in like 35 minutes, and I might speed up some a little bit at some point. So hopefully not too drawn out, especially when I'm just trying to pinpoint certain points of each game where you know where I quote unquote learned. Uh, this is the list I was playing for those 4 games. Again, this was like the meme list I showed in the last video, quote unquote. But I think these are probably not gonna be in the final list. I am, just like I said, just memeing, experimenting. But they actually weren't bad, so maybe they're fine. And then I actually really like the Gaudy Blade, so I might try to find room for this in the actual list, but we'll see that in the games. Um, so yeah, one again, I don't know how relevant this deck is in the meta at all, if it is at all. We lost ISO, uh, going first. We have Margaret, so we have a body on 3, and I think that's just a good enough reason to keep. That's a good amount of cards to play late game as well. So there's not a ton to talk about early game. I don't think I'll try to speed up a bit, just get to the point. So it's because this is kind of like I wouldn't say masterclass or a guide or anything like that, but just trying to sh- showcase mini points from the games as I practice and get better. I decided to play Ran over Boa just to have the consistent one Dawn. And then this next turn is actually where I'm not 100% sure if the play I made was correct. Um, but we'll see. So I a 2K here, because 7 coming after is what he's representing, and don't want to be that greedy. That's gonna help us stay healthy. That triggers, so that's lucky. And then here, I think. Sorry, I don't know how to not make this show up when I'm trying to show. That's a little unfortunate, but it'll go away. Um, so looking at my hand, I think. Well, I thought it would go away. Maybe it's not going away, but we can still see the cards. So I think in my brain, I've just defaulted to the Kuma, and I think that's a fine option here. Um, but it does limit our potential for swings this turn as well, but as well as next turn when we want to play Boa. So and it still might be fine. It might be correct, but I think there's an argument that I should have just played this Boa instead of the Kuma. But maybe again, I'm not 100% sure. I'm still learning and figuring this out, and it worked out for me. Spoiler, but I think it's just something to consider when it comes to dot usage. Since there's no these 5Ks aren't getting any value because everything is a 6 or above. Maybe the bow is more value than the Kuma in a spot like this. But I decided to go with the Kuma. It buys time at the end of the day, so it's not terrible. We still get to attack twice. It's just like if we go with the Boa, our math there was a lot better, and the Zoro probably dies. We get to go 6, 6, 8 at it. I'm pretty sure was the math. Um, and the Zoro probably dies to that, and then that's one less swing at a life, right? So like we save a life by by removing the body permanently instead of just gaining a life. But the body is only gonna be swinging 6, and we end up countering. He swings at Margaret, and I counter. It just felt like it's kind of like a bait, and it's kind of weird, and I don't know if it's correct or incorrect on his part. But it feels like if he's swinging at it, he wants it gone, so I should just give one card and let him swing at it again next turn. But when I look at my next turn, I don't have Dawn to swing with this Margaret anyway. So maybe I'm supposed to just let it die. But because I think he's going to swing at it again, I end up giving a 2K and saying, okay, well this is one card. Maybe a 7 will go there and it eats a 7 for me. But he just says, okay, I'll hit your life, which I feel like the 6 should just go a life at that point. It's kind of the same thing. I think it's basically a misplay on his part to swing at it. It's a misplay on my part to counter for it, I think. But either way, I block, take one, get a trigger. I think just taking the event there is good. Want to make sure we have Boa cards if we ever end up getting Gorgon Sisters on board. Attach one to a leader. 6. It dies, which is really good. Obviously, the pudding's not going to die. He'll give anything to save that. He gives a Bagua. It's not bad for him because it ramps him a Dawn. And then this next turn is where. So I get a lucky trigger, and I think I'm never dead here. I don't think. So just getting that on board for a lot of Dawn next turn is really worth it. Then we counter that 7, and now we're kind of in a weird spot where our hand is so small and our life is small and his board is wide. We're kind of like not ever gonna live another turn, really. Um, so we're basically just being forced to go for lethal, which is fine. The trigger does nothing. So then the other point in this game, nothing to do with the format, but I guess just because it's the beginning of the quote unquote series, just showing how to attack in the Gum Gum Giant for people who aren't, you know. I know it's been out of the meta for like this format for OP13, so maybe I think people have struggled into it in general sometimes. It's not that hard. I think most players would, be like, yeah, this is very simple, but just showcasing you just poke when the hand is this small and they have giant. Um, I do end up playing Sengoku here because we have free Dawn since we get to attach Rested Dawn anyway. And Sengoku, if it finds a femur, is technically a bonus Dawn, right? A gaining Dawn because I spend 2 Dawn for 2,000 power, and then I get to attach the Rested. So I just look for femur. I don't find it. Um, this next thing I do literally just it's probably bad to be honest because it kind of forces me to spread the Dawn in a certain way. But it's technically free in the sense that I'm gonna get to attach all the Dawn anyway. I thought about when I was trying to do my lethal math. Once he took 6, I thought about just playing this and putting him to 0. But the problem is I'm really only swinging 6, 7, 10 after that, and I don't think that's that hard for him to count out of when he has giant and 5 cards in hand. And it could be more if I had Gorgon Sisters, but I didn't have enough lilies or whatever they're called. Kuja Pirates. Yeah, Amazon lilies or Kuja Pirates to reveal so I could attach Rested Dawn to make the swings better. So I ended up going 6, 6. He counters, and he's 2 cards in hand. So I'm just going 7. If he giants, like this is why I say it's probably worse for me to do Boa though, because I did have to commit a Dawn into my Boa when I would have preferred to just win 6. So that was probably just bad, but it's fine. Then so we get there, just giant math, a lot of swings. The Lucky Gorgon Sisters trigger. Again, don't know how relevant that deck is, but there's a couple things to point out in that game. And then we have Ace. I think this deck is somewhat relevant in 14, but not like you know entirely around. I think it's kind of gotten pushed out of the meta a little bit. So it's a good hand though. We just got Sengoku, Boa, Kuma. We just have everything we want. Starts at 8. We of course are not giving. You don't even have 2 cards. And then we get a lucky trigger, and it's a really good one because it lets us filter actually. Because we have a lot of bricks. So filter out the 2 boas, draw our 4th boa. Um, why not? So that stack looked a little weird. The reason I stacked it this way was because I'm gonna put this boa in life, right? And trigger this boa. That probably seems a little weird considering it's my only boa. I don't have another 9-cost boa to play. But I think against the 6,000 power leader, I really just wanted to get this Gorgon Sisters on the board. So that was my thinking. So I'll just put this on I'll just put this into life and play out Gorgon Sisters. I will say I think it is correct to I put Kuma here because like either way I'm gonna draw this card. But I gotta remember if I trigger a body this next turn, I'm gonna draw one, right? And that's gonna mess up this stack. So I think I should put Kuma at the front, and then if I draw one and end up, drawing Boa for turn, I still have a Margaret to put in life at least. It's better than nothing. So I think that's something to keep in mind when you're stacking. That I wasn't too thinking about too much at the time. Is if you trigger a body, maybe you don't want to trigger a body if you hit the trigger. I decided to just block this though. One, so I don't have to worry about my stat getting messed up and just rip his life. Play Kuma pass. I think it's fine. Take our turn off swinging. It's not the end of the world. And then, as much as I wanted to play a Gorgon Sisters, I also don't want to just take life for no reason. The attacks are going to get much bigger earlier or later, so yeah. Then here, so I don't have a 9 cost for next turn, right? As I just used one. So as much as I think I end up considering playing Kuma, and then also considering Boa and Margaret, also considering Corona, the because stopping Cavendish from drawing would be good. I think I played it correctly, but I ended up starting with the Boa, and it's kind of like if I really want to find 9 costs, I should almost start with Margaret and then play the Boa, so I can at least keep a stack on top that I know about, in case like if 9 cost isn't in this stack, I play Margaret and find the 9 cost. But then I don't get to like stack a trigger or something into life off of it. Whereas if I start with Margaret, I could find 9 costs or something and dig deeper, and then play Boa and stack for the 9 cost. But I end up doing it in a somewhat greedier way and decided to just start with Boa, because if I find the 9 cost off Boa, I could just play Perona instead of Margaret. Which you could say I could do the same thing off of if I start with Margaret, but I think Boa is just it's a 6K, it's a blocker. He'll take a life if I block. It's just better than Margaret to have on board. So I end up starting with Boa, a little greedier, but I think it's fine to be honest. And then we do see a trigger at least. We're lucky enough to see a trigger off with the Boa to put into life, being the Gravity Blade. Not terrible here. Not amazing, but not terrible. And then just got to keep in mind, Gorgon Sisters. We only have 3, so we have to keep that in mind when we like playing out the cards from my hand as well. And then yeah, I decide I'm just gonna play the Perona, so we're just gonna go 6, 7, 8, get 4 cards out of him. I think it's correct for him to get 4 cards for this, and I think he's gonna do it like every time. But obviously we're gonna take the cards, right? So 6, 7, 8, 2K, 1K, leader effect 1K, something along those lines. 4 cards is 4 cards. And then I can either stop Jozu from swinging or I can stop Cavendish from swinging, right? I prefer him to just not draw cards. I don't care about being a big swing coming at my life. It would be a big swing either way with this card, right? I'd rather him just not draw off the Cavendish. And then I think I should honestly just let this die. I think it was a mistake on my part to block here, because he's just gonna swing it again, and then I get like negative leader effect value because I let 2 bodies die in 1 turn, and he doesn't swing at my life like he probably would have. So I don't trigger the Gravity Blade to bottom deck this Cavendish before it can attack me next turn. Um, It does let me stay healthy, but I could have just been like one less life and still have the blocker and be just as fine, right? Blocker basically equals to life. Um, so yeah, we end up playing Boa, just rip the life. Why not? Yeah, Boa with the life. I'm not because I'm at 4 life. I don't need to float Dawn for this event, so I'll just win 6. If he blocks, we'll win 7. If he counters, we'll pass. This obviously doesn't make sense to do, but I decide it's kind of like a skill check thing. Why not? Swing 5, and if he wants to attack it, I don't care if this body dies. It's a 5k. It'll swing 6 at most. If this if it dies and he swings at it, it'll buy me a lot of time. He probably just shouldn't swing at it, knowing I'm putting it sideways for no reason. But he swings 6 at it, and I just say, okay, that's fine. Your Jozu can't attack me this turn. This is low berry stuff. It is what it is. We counter with Kumasi again, trying to keep what's it called in hand. Sengoku lucky top deck, and we find another 9 cost. I think that's kind of important, so we have a big body for our femur whenever we find it. We're still very healthy. Again, don't want to take 6s. Give one card. Give one card. But we are forced with a decision coming up. So trigger, yeah, dig deeper, try to find our femur. I think slight mistake. I should just get rid of Margaret over one of those counter cards. Oh, whoops. Um, but it is what it is. Maybe even both of these instead of both of those counter cards. And then we have a decision with Grady Blade. Cavendish, Marco, or save it and use it next turn, right? Um, I end up deciding to use it on Marco because if I find femur, I have a lot of poke swings because he's not allowed to just block all of them, and I don't want him to draw 3 on those poke swings. This can draw 1, draw 2. It goes +1 every turn. It's annoying, but it's not the worst. It's just +1. Marco's +3 right there. We find the femur, and then I think it is just math with the femur. If we go, he has 7 cards in hand. We go 7 because why not? He correctly, I think, decides to just block it, and now we have to just look. We can go 19 unblockable at 7 cards in hand. 7 cards can get him to 20k at most, right? 20k counter at most. So he could technically counter out of it if he has 6 2Ks. And if he has 6 2Ks, he counters out. So it's not math. So what I do is just poke 6. If he blocks this, if he has the counter, he basically lives guaranteed anyway, right? And we can I don't think we're necessarily dead here, right? We could just swing big, get cards. Like if he ever blocks this 6, we can just swing 10, get 4 cards out of his hand, play Kuma, and float it on. And we're never dead through that. He has 5 swings. We have 4 life and a event. So that would be fine for us if he blocks one of these 6s to just poke more and not commit. But as soon as he gives 2 cards on these 6s, instead of blocking either of them, well now it is math. Because I got 2 cards for the 2 Dawn instead of 1. And now we can go 17 at 6. 5 cards, the most you can get to is 16. So now it's math because he gave 2 cards on the 6s. But if he doesn't, could always just say, I'm fine with poking those cards out of your hand and playing Kuma and leaving up a Dawn. And we're never dead. So those were those games. I think there was a good amount of general stuff to learn from. And now we have the mirror. I won dice. I choose second. I think I surely mulligan this hand. And then this hand is fine. We have Gouty Blade. I think is really strong in the mirror. Like I said, this Gouty Blade has been MVP as a one of, and I think it might be worth bumping up to two, maybe even three, with how good it's been. Especially when you see how good it goes in both of these mirror matches I play. Because spoiler, the next game is a mirror against the same guy. Again, low ranking, but um, I don't want to take too greedily. That's our only counter card. As much as I would have loved to play it, stacking, just a matter of what I want to hit out of life. I think Gorgon Sisters would be ideal generally, but because of how bricked we are, I decided to go with Margaret in life next turn off the Kuma. Just so we draw the 2K, and then Margaret can find counter while pitching a brick from our hand. He didn't hit a first life trigger, unfortunately for him. So now we're immediately just up on tempo. Like the game's just so much in our favor since that wasn't a body. And he could take again to try and get a body just for the board tempo, but then he's taking the two very early, and that's very dangerous in the mirror. I think. Again, I'm still learning, so early, but it seems like you this deck can't. As much as you want to take for triggers, you need to be cautious about how you take because this deck can just die. It can just suddenly fall over. He's thinking. Speed it up a little bit. Could just stay on times two and pause at any point. 7. Um, I end up just taking. I think we get another lucky trigger again. So you could say this. Why are we watching this game? This is just high roll, which is fair. But this is kind of just to point something out here and show off Gravity Blade is the main reason I wanted to show these games. So right here, I stacked with Boa last turn, right? And technically, I did ruin my stack with the draw. To be fair, so maybe he was correct in not blocking because I did that. But I stacked with Boa, and even if the draw would mess me up, it doesn't really because if the third card has a trigger, it's still it would still be played off of Kuma, right? So because this card is basically always going to be a trigger, I think it is correct for him to just block with Boa and add this to life, so I don't get the trigger body. He does fall behind in board state if he does that, of course, but he could hit a trigger too and come right back just like that. He hits the Gorgon, he hits the Rin, and bam, his board state doesn't look as bad. One life, kind of bad, but just knowing this is a trigger and not making it so I can't get the life is unfortunate. Kuma again. So this is like always a trigger, we know. Um, so I'm pretty sure. I don't remember if I end up realizing that. I think I should just block and make him take this. I do. And then I decide if he wants to swing at me, I'm down to trigger this. Add the event, some good defense. And then yeah, I can't really swing and like take a life from that effect. I think I'm in very big danger if I do that. But just bottom decking those when he's at 1 and hitting his life when this is my board and I have 2 life and I'll have a Don up for this, it's basically checkmate. There's not really anything he can do here. We're just poking a bunch, poking, and then yeah, he's dead. Like there's nothing to be done about that. Gravity Blade just honestly seems very, very strong in the mirror. Now I don't think it should have been as good as it was. I think he should have blocked with Boa on the last turn. And then this Margaret wouldn't be in life. I would have hit a Boa trigger if I took, and I would be at 1. Um, so again, I'm not sure if he played it correctly and got unlucky, or if it's just I was in low elo type thing. I definitely am still in low elo, but I think there's still things that like I am learning this stuff as I play these games. Like I definitely wasn't aware about just blocking with Boa after, when they Kuma stack. When they stack the Kuma with their own Boa, just blocking so it's not a guaranteed life, a guaranteed trigger out of life. Like I wasn't aware of that until I played that and thought about it in the spot, and now it's like in my brain for the futures mirrors, right? So just how I take knowledge from each, like take little things from each game and try to put them into every game I play. So we queue up one more game in this. We get him again. He wins dice roll this time. We have our funny cards. This is fine. Um, it's a decent mulligan hand. We at least see a Margaret on 3. He plays Yori, and I think for a sec, like, am I supposed to not swing here? Because he put a trigger in life, and I think that's just not allowed. I think you can't really starve this deck. So I just hit him, and honestly, it's not even that bad. What he ends up triggering is like not scary in the slightest. Like it's just a Margaret. Uh, Not a big deal. Um, Add a 2K because we don't have. We had one. I think maybe I should have added Rin there, to be honest. To have a play for next turn. Unless we're planning on playing Piranha, but I think I should have added Rin. But I wanted a 2K, I guess. And then, so we countered with Piranha. I'm gonna rewind that actually a bit. So when I was theory crafting like this Piranha and Kumasi, because it's the only Thriller Bark cards I have in this version, right? In my mind, I thought that Piranha could play itself when you hit it with a trigger. Um, but you'll see when I counter with this Piranha, he swings 5 and I counter. My logic behind countering was if I hit a Kumasi, I want to have a Piranha in trash to play. But I end up hitting a Piranha out of life. Now, I thought I could trigger Piranha, and when you play a trigger, it goes to the trash. So I thought I could trigger Piranha, put it in trash, and then play that same Piranha. Based on what happens when I use this, it's only one option. So I assume you can't play the same card, and I just got lucky that I happen to have one to counter with, which makes this not as good if that is the case. And then this on play doesn't really do anything. Um, and it's a body he can actually attack without having to worry about ripping life. But it's still another body for me to swing with. It buys time, makes it so he can't attack. So I don't know. They're probably not staying in the list, but I'll probably have a little bit more fun with them before I can take them out and see, if I do like them. Um, so I got lucky and drew a Margaret at least, because otherwise, because I added uh Shaku over Rin, I would have had like no plays this turn. I was hoping to find a 4-cost Boa, but this isn't the worst because now we have a Kuma for next turn, and I am more than happy for him to block that there. Because again, I'm just not being forced to rip life. Add a 2K, pitch to pudding. I think all of that's fine. You have a Gorgon in hand in case you trigger something that lets us play it out of hand. Would be really strong. And here's a crucial. He attacks it. I decide this is fine. Maybe I should give a card for it. I could see merit either way, but I decide it's fine. I don't want him to poke that all game when it doesn't, like, it's just free cards for him to poke it without even having to worry about ripping life for him. So we top the Gravity Blade. It's not the worst spot, but because he doesn't have Dawn on his leader, I actually want to attack his board this turn as much as possible. So it's definitely a Kuma turn. And then this Gorgon Sisters trigger, again, just very lucky. Because we get to poke, and he doesn't even get a single free block. And we just get to tax his hand heavy on 2Ks here. As far as what we trash, I want Gravity Blade for next turn. I want Gravity Blade for next turn, and I need these other 3 cards for Gorgon Sisters. So we have to trash a 2K. It's fine though. With how ahead we are on board now, how ahead we will be is perfectly fine. Then yeah, we just hit this. He has no Dawn on leader, so those are definitely the turns where if they ever put their board sideways and they don't have Dawn, you need to hit it. Um, and then I could go 7 here, but 6 or 7 is one card either way. If I'm not mistaken, he this was the turn he gave like two 1Ks too, didn't he? Sorry. No, I'm tripping. Um, but yeah, I mean, just in a really good spot now, I think. Again, though, I think it's because of the Gravity Blade that we have in hand. When we look at how the board state ends up looking next turn, I think Gravity Blade is just been a savior in these mews. Hikuma's again gains a life. It's fine. 5, we're obviously countering. We counter with Kuma. Again, we need to save 3 cards for our Gorgon Sisters. I'm a little surprised he doesn't attack the Gorgon Sisters with how much Dawn it provides, but I guess he's scared about taking the life, which is maybe reasonable. I'm not 100% sure. But he swings. I decided we don't need this streamer because I'm just gonna Guardian Blade this bow anyway, right? So I'll just replace it for counter. No point in inventing because it's just a 6 if he wants to swing the boa. Then here we have the same questions as like before. We could boa, right? We could Kuma. Those gain a life, establish a body, but then we're ripping a life because he blocks with boa, and it's just not. We'll get 1 life. We could maybe live. It's not the worst, but it's sketchy, and I'm not a fan. So I just Gravity Blade those two out of the way. Show the same 3 cards. No point in showing a dead card, giving any more information. And then here's something I think I need to do the math on it, but I think it's just a mistake what he does. So I swing 6, he takes. He triggers femur and also decides to just draw a card. Reasonable. Swing 6, he takes. Then he hits a trigger here, which I guess depending on his hand, maybe it doesn't matter. But he pops my Gorgon Sisters. Well, I have a Dawn on my leader, so he immediately takes another life. And now he has no chance of that life saving him with a lucky 0 cost trigger or anything. And I just get to go 7-9, and he has to have 3 2Ks and 2 1Ks to live. And I decided to just go for it. I could maybe live if I keep a Dawn open. I'd have to do the math, but I decide there's no way you have perfect counter here, especially if you're taking 6s earlier. Um, so yeah, popping, I think as much as you feel like maybe he needed to, like he was probably dead anyway, it it's just like not allowed. Put yourself to 0 and you're dead. Um, could do the math quick, I guess, on whether or not I could live. On his first character swing, I would boa event the other swing, so he splits 2 ways. If he splits 2 ways, it's 5, 7 plus 10, that's 22. 11, 11. We would need a 1K out of life if he goes 11, 11, which we wouldn't have got. Um, yeah, so, and if he starts 9, he could pivot to like a weird 5 or 6, 7 with Fury and leader. So it's just was definitely correct to go for it there because there's no world where he has perfect counter. Um, but yeah, so those were the games I wanted to showcase, just like the takeaways from each game. This one being that consider playing Gorgon Sisters over Kuma when all like their leader and all the bodies are 6Ks, and you have a board full of 5Ks that can't swing. You kind of need Gorgon Sisters maybe. Um, I did end up getting a lucky Gorgon Sisters trigger though at some point to make the swings relevant. And then giant math. You know, if they have low cards in hand, just keep poking if as long as you have enough swings to do so. No need to commit into giant, like commit big. Until you, till they all have to connect, of course. Um, Ace game. Main thing was the stack ordering, keeping in mind how it could get changed if you trigger a body. Um, Not wasting leader effect by blocking when it's just gonna die anyway. And showcasing all three of these last three games. The one of Gravity Blade, I saw it all three games, and it. You can call me a luck sack. There's a reason I played Queen, but it put in work. Also, this Kumasi and Piranha package kind of did okay in these games too. Again, this is Zote. I don't think he was supposed to attack it that turn. I just put it sideways for 5, but they kind of put in work. They probably shouldn't be in the deck though. But you know, I'll worry about that once I start playing better players and see how good they actually are. And then in the mirror, just consider blocking with Boa to mess up their Boa stack if they healed off of Kuma. Throw it with Gravity Blade MVP. And careful popping with Ready Trigger. But yeah, so that was a lot of little things. Again, I play a lot of games, and I usually just take one or two things away from every game I play. That's going to be more so the case when I'm at the beginning of a format and learning. As I play more, I'll be like not learning as much each game, obviously. Um, so it won't be as much to point out and go over and everything. But yeah, that would be it for this episode 1, I suppose. Appreciate y'all, and let me know if you have any questions, any advice on any of these turns, on my thinking, on cards in the deck, whatever. I'm down to take input. And peace.